All right, so we're diving into Eat That Frog. Today, you've given us a ton of notes and highlights from Brian Tracy's book.
Yeah,
Looks like you're ready to tackle procrastination.
it's a good one.
Yeah, his advice is, I mean, it's kind of a classic now, but it's as relevant today as ever.
Oh, for sure.
So let's see what we can get out of it.
I think one of the things that's so interesting is how he uses this metaphor of the frog, you know,
Yeah.
to represent those tasks that we all avoid.
Oh, yeah.
The ones we kind of push to the bottom of the to-do list and hope they'll magically disappear.
Yeah, like maybe if I ignore it long enough, it'll just go away.
Exactly. And he argues that actually confronting those frogs head on,
Okay.
especially the ugliest ones, the ones that we really don't want to deal with,
Yeah.
that's actually the key to unlocking a lot more success.
So eat that frog.
Eat that frog.
I have to admit, I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed thinking about all the things I've been putting off.
Sure.
So where do we even begin?
Well, I think that's where goal clarity comes in. He has this great statistic in the book
Okay.
that only 3% of adults have written goals.
Wow.
And guess what they achieve? Significantly more than those who don't.
Really?
Yeah, and so much of procrastination stems from a lack of clarity about what we're actually aiming for.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you don't know where you're going, how can you even pick the right path, let alone the right frog to eat?
Exactly.
So how do we set those clear goals?
Well, he outlines a 7-step formula. And what I really like about it
Yeah.
is that he emphasizes writing those goals down in the present tense,
Oh, interesting.
as if you've already achieved them.
Okay.
It's about making them real
Yeah.
and giving them energy, you know?
Right.
So it's not just about checking boxes, but really connecting with a deeper why behind what you're doing.
I see.
So instead of, I want to write a book, you would say something like, I am a published author, inspiring others with my words.
Oh, I see. It's like you're tricking your brain into believing it's already happening,
Yeah.
giving you that extra push to actually make it a reality.
Yeah.
I like that. But even with clear goals, I still sometimes struggle with actually taking action.
Sure.
I know what I should be doing,
Yeah.
but then I get bogged down in busy work or distracted.
It's so easy to get distracted.
Oh, it's so easy.
And it's one of the reasons why he talks about planning.
Okay.
Because he says every minute spent planning saves 10 minutes in execution.
Okay, I've heard that before. But to be honest, sometimes planning feels like more work,
I can see that.
especially when I'm feeling overwhelmed already.
Yeah, but the thing is you're taking control of your time and energy
Okay.
rather than them controlling you.
I see.
So he advocates for making lists.
Okay.
So a master list, to capture every idea,
Yeah.
a monthly list, then weekly and even daily lists to kind of break those things down and stay on track.
So instead of feeling like I'm drowning in a sea of to-dos,
Yeah,
I have a read map or something.
that's the idea.
Okay, but even with a plan, I still have so many things that need my attention.
Yeah.
How do I know which ones deserve my focus?
Well, that's where this famous 80-20 rule comes in.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
It states that 20% of our efforts often produce 80% of our results.
Okay.
So if you think about your work,
Yeah.
are there certain tasks that consistently lead to the biggest wins,
Yeah, I think I could identify a few.
even if they're not always the most enjoyable?
Yeah, I definitely have some tasks that feel more impactful than others,
Okay.
but I often avoid them because they're more challenging or time-consuming.
Exactly. And that's the thing,
Okay.
is that those high-impact tasks, the ones that really move the needle,
Yeah.
those are often the ones that we're most likely to procrastinate on.
Oh, interesting.
They're the frogs. And so to identify them, we need to consider the consequences
Okay.
of doing or not doing them.
So it's not just what feels urgent in the moment, it's the long-term impact.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we put that into practice?
Well, one of the tools he gives us is the ABCDE method.
Okay.
It's about assigning a letter to each task on your list based on its importance and consequence.
So it's like ranking them from most important to least important.
Yes. And I bet you can guess what A stands for.
Is it eat this frog immediately?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The A tasks are the most critical, the ones with the most serious consequences if not done.
Okay.
So those are your frogs.
Right.
Then you have B tasks, which are still important, but have milder consequences.
Right.
C tasks are those nice to-dos, but with no real consequences.
Okay.
And then you've got D for delegate and E for eliminate.
So it's about really focusing on those A tasks and then maybe delegating or eliminating the rest as much as possible?
Exactly.
Okay, I like that framework.
Good.
But how do we make sure that those A tasks align with what matters most?
Yeah, that's where the concept of key result areas comes in.
Okay.
These are the areas that determine success in your role.
Okay.
If you don't do them, nobody will. And if you do them well, your performance skyrockets.
I see.
So, for example,
Mm.
imagine a manager whose key result areas are planning, organizing, and delegating.
Okay.
If they fail in any of these areas,
Right.
it's going to affect their whole team's effectiveness.
That's true. So it's like the core things
Yes,
that make
that's-
the biggest difference.
Yeah. And how do we figure out what our own key result areas are?
That's a good question.
Well, you can ask yourself, what are the tasks or projects that, if I did them exceptionally well,
Yeah.
would have the biggest positive impact on my overall performance?
Okay.
What are the areas where you really have the most potential to excel?
I'm starting to see the connection.
Good.
It's like focusing on the areas that are going to move the needle in my career or whatever.
Exactly.
But let's be honest, even when we know what we need to be doing, we still struggle to find the time or motivation
Oh, for sure.
to actually do it.
Yeah,
There's always something else
right.
vying for our attention.
And that's where he talks about this law of forced efficiency.
Okay.
And it's a bit of a game changer. He says there's never enough time to do everything, but there's always enough time to do the most important thing.
Okay, that resonates with me. It's
Yeah.
like when you have a deadline and suddenly you find the time
Exactly.
to do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
But how do we create that sense of urgency without constantly being in crisis mode?
Well, he encourages us to ask ourselves 3 key questions.
Okay.
What are my highest value activities?
Okay.
What can I and only I do that's really going to make a difference?
Right.
And what is the most valuable use of my time right now?
So it's like constantly recalibrating,
Yes.
making sure I'm aligned with my top priorities
Exactly.
and not getting bogged down in all the other stuff.
Yeah, all the busy work that doesn't really matter.
Right. It's like becoming laser focused
Yes.
on the task that'll have the biggest payoff.
Those juicy frogs
Yeah.
that we need to eat first.
All right, but even with laser focus,
Yeah.
sometimes getting started feels like the hardest part. Like I hit this invisible wall of procrastination.
Yeah. And so how do we overcome that initial resistance and actually take action?
Yeah, how do we do that?
Well, one thing he suggests is preparing your workspace and gathering all the materials you need before you start a task.
Oh, okay.
He compares it to being a cocked gun ready to fire.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, instead of wasting time like looking for files or figuring out what
Yeah.
you need,
Right.
you're ready to hit the ground running.
Like clearing the runway.
Exactly. And he even tells this funny story
Oh, yeah.
about aspiring screenwriters in LA
Okay.
who, when asked about their scripts, will say, oh, almost done, almost done.
Uh-huh.
But the reality is
Yeah.
they haven't even started
Right.
because they haven't taken that crucial step of actually setting themselves up for success.
It's like sometimes the hardest part is just starting. So anything that makes that easier is
Yeah.
a win.
Absolutely. And then
Yeah.
once we've taken that first step,
Yeah.
he talks about
Yep.
doing your homework,
Yeah.
which in this context means continuous learning
Right.
and skill development.
Oh, yeah. Continuous learning is so important.
It is.
But sometimes it feels like adding more
yeah,
to my already overflowing plate.
I hear you.
So how do we find the time for that?
Well, it's not about adding more to your plate. It's about
Okay.
being strategic
Mm-hmm.
with what you learn
Okay.
and focusing on the areas that will have the biggest impact.
Okay. So leverage our strengths
Exactly.
instead of trying to be good at everything.
Yeah, play to your strengths.
Right.
What are you already good at?
Right.
What are your frog-eating superpowers?
Oh, I like that.
What have been your biggest successes?
Hmm.
What compliments do you receive regularly?
Okay.
What kind of work do you find yourself naturally gravitating towards?
Yeah. Those are good questions. It's like a self-assessment
Yeah.
to figure out where I shine.
Exactly.
But even when we're playing to our strengths,
Uh-huh.
there's still going to be obstacles and challenges.
Of course.
It's like you hit these roadblocks.
Yeah. And that's where his concept of identifying constraints comes in.
Okay. What does that mean?
He encourages us to ask ourselves, what's holding me back?
Mm.
What is the oil barrel I need to focus on?
The oil barrel, I'm not sure I follow.
It's an analogy he uses
Okay.
to illustrate breaking down large, complex tasks
Okay.
into manageable chunks.
All right.
So he talks about crossing the Sahara Desert,
Oh, wow.
which seems like an impossible feat.
Yeah.
But the only way to navigate that vast landscape
Right.
is to focus on reaching the next oil barrel,
Okay.
which are placed 5 kilometers apart.
Oh, I see. So instead of getting overwhelmed by the whole thing,
Yeah.
you focus on that next step.
Exactly.
Those little milestones.
Your own little oil barrels.
I like that. But even with a clear path
Right.
and those milestones,
Uh-huh.
sometimes we still struggle with that inner drive.
Oh, yeah, that inner resistance.
Yeah, it's like a little voice saying, maybe tomorrow.
And he says the key there is to put pressure on yourself. No one else is coming to the rescue.
Oh,
You have to be your own motivator.
it's true.
And he suggests this technique where you imagine
Okay.
that you have to leave town tomorrow for a month.
Oh, wow.
What would you absolutely have to get done?
Yeah, suddenly it's not so optional.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Good, but let's be real.
Yeah,
All this frog eating and pressure,
it can be a lot.
it can take a toll on our energy levels.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's why he talks about maximizing personal power,
Okay.
which is our physical, mental, and emotional energy.
Right. Those are like the raw materials.
Exactly.
Yes.
Of productivity. And if we're not taking care of ourselves,
Yeah.
our motivation and effectiveness will plummet.
So it's about taking care of myself
Absolutely.
so that I can actually do the things.
Yes. Take care of yourself so you could take care of those frogs.
Oh, okay. I like that. And what are some of the things we can do?
Well, he talks about getting enough sleep.
Oh, yeah. Sleep is so important.
It is ideally going to bed early, eating a healthy diet,
Okay.
taking breaks and vacations,
Right.
to recharge.
Yeah, you need that time.
And even simple things like
Yeah.
getting fresh air and exercise during the day.
Okay, so it's holistic.
Exactly. It's all connected.
But what about those days
Yeah.
when I'm just mentally drained?
Okay.
Like even if I slept well and all that?
That's where the power of optimism comes in.
Okay.
He talks about the connection between optimism and high performance.
Right. I've noticed that when I'm feeling more optimistic, things go better.
They do.
But what if I'm not naturally an optimist?
Well, the good news is
Okay.
that optimism is a skill that
Really?
you can cultivate.
You can learn to be more optimistic.
Exactly. And one of the techniques he suggests is repeating positive affirmations.
Oh, yeah?
Like, I can do it, or I feel terrific.
I've heard of that.
It might feel cheesy at first,
Yeah.
but over time, these statements can actually rewire your brain
Wow.
to be more optimistic. So you're training your mind
Okay.
to focus on the positive,
Right.
to see the glass half full,
Yeah.
even when things are tough.
But even with a positive outlook,
Right.
there are still some tasks I just don't enjoy.
I hear you. And that leads us to one of his most interesting ideas,
Okay.
which is creative procrastination.
Wait a minute. Procrastination can be creative.
It can.
I thought it was like the enemy.
Well, the thing is, procrastination itself isn't the problem.
Okay.
It's what you choose to procrastinate on.
Oh, I see.
So instead of procrastinating on those high-impact tasks,
That's just A tasks.
exactly, the ones that will really move the needle,
Oh, okay.
you consciously choose to put off the low-value ones.
The C tasks.
Exactly, the ones that aren't really that important.
Oh, so it's about shifting my mindset
Yeah.
from I have to do everything
Yeah.
to what are the things that really matter?
Exactly.
Okay, and how do I know what to procrastinate on?
Well, he suggests asking yourself this question. If I wasn't doing this already, would I start doing it again today?
Oh, that's a good one.
If the answer is no,
Yeah.
it's probably a good candidate for creative procrastination.
Okay. Or maybe even just eliminating it altogether. So I'm clearing my plate
Yes, decluttering your to-do list.
and my mind
Correct.
to make space for the important stuff.
Yes, and even when you've done that,
Yeah.
those frogs can still feel pretty intimidating.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So how do we tackle those big, challenging tasks?
Right. And I think one of the mistakes people make
Uh,
is trying to eat the whole frog in one sitting.
yeah, it's too much.
It is, and that's where his techniques for slicing and dicing tasks come in.
Okay, this sounds interesting.
He has the salami slice method and the Swiss cheese method.
I'm liking these food analogies.
They're pretty vivid.
Yeah.
So the salami slice method is about breaking down a task
Okay.
into smaller, more manageable slices.
Just like a salami.
Exactly. You do one slice at a time
Okay.
until the whole thing is complete. And then the Swiss cheese method is about punching holes in the task.
Okay.
So committing to work on it
Yeah.
for a certain amount of time each day.
Like 25 minutes or something.
Exactly like with the Pomodoro technique.
Okay, so even if I can't eat the whole frog,
Right.
I can at least take a few bites.
Yeah. Or punch a few holes.
Okay.
And the cool thing about these techniques
Yeah.
is that they tap into our brain's natural urge for completion.
Oh, okay.
So you start seeing some progress.
Yeah.
And it motivates you to keep going.
So you build momentum.
Exactly.
One slice.
One whole.
At a time.
Exactly.
Mm.
But even when we've sliced and diced those tasks,
Uh-huh.
How do we make sure
Yeah.
we actually give them the time and attention they need?
Yeah. It's easy to get sidetracked.
It is, and that's why he talks about creating large chunks of time
Okay. But how?
for your most important work.
My schedule is already so full.
I know it requires some planning
Right.
and discipline, but it's about treating these blocks of time like appointments.
Oh, like an appointment with myself.
Exactly. So you're not just reacting to whatever comes up.
Okay.
You're proactively making time for the things that matter.
So blocking off time in my calendar.
Exactly. And during those work periods,
Yeah.
eliminate all distractions.
Okay.
Turn off your phone,
Mm-hmm.
close your email,
Got it.
create a workspace where you can truly focus.
So it's like my own little productivity sanctuary.
I love that. And he even suggests working at home in the mornings
Oh, okay.
for a few hours if you can,
Why is that?
because you can often get 3 times as much done
Really?
without the interruptions of an office environment.
Yeah, I can see that being really helpful.
And even when we have the perfect work environment
Right.
and we blocked off that time,
Yeah.
we can still struggle with focus.
Oh, yeah. Our brains are wired for distraction.
They are.
Yeah.
And so he talks about developing a sense of urgency.
Okay, so it's not just finding the time,
Uh-huh.
it's how I approach the work.
Exactly. It's about having a bias for action. So taking action instead of endlessly talking about taking action.
Right.
And he suggests using action-oriented language,
Oh,
like do it now or back to work.
so like a mental mantra.
Exactly. To keep yourself motivated and on track.
I like that, but what about when
Yeah.
I have multiple tasks?
Uh-huh.
How do I avoid feeling scattered?
Right. And that brings us to his final principle,
Okay.
which is single-handling every task.
Single handling.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's the art of focusing on one task at a time
Okay.
until it's 100% complete.
Oh, wow. No multitasking.
No multitasking.
Just focus.
Pure dedicated focus.
Okay.
And he argues that starting and stopping a task repeatedly
Yeah.
can actually increase the time it takes
Really?
by as much as 500%.
500%.
So even though it might feel counterintuitive,
Yeah.
focusing on one thing at a time
Uh-huh.
actually leads to greater efficiency.
Wow. Okay.
And it's not just about efficiency.
Okay.
It's also about the quality of your work.
Yeah.
When you're constantly switching between tasks,
Right.
your attention is fragmented.
Yeah, you can't do your best work that way.
Exactly. And you're more likely to make mistakes.
That makes sense.
So by dedicating your full focus to one task at a time,
Yeah.
not only are you getting things done faster,
Right.
but you're also doing them better,
Okay.
which in turn boosts your confidence and motivation.
Yeah, it's like a positive cycle.
Exactly. And before we move on,
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are some of the key takeaways that have resonated with you so far?
I think for me, one of the biggest things is just the importance of mindset.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about the tactics.
Right.
It's about cultivating that inner drive and the optimism
Yeah.
to actually take action.
Absolutely. He really
Oh.
emphasizes that
Yeah.
we need to be our own cheerleaders
Right.
and, focus on our strengths and celebrate our wins.
I think that's so important.
It is. And it's actually really cool to see how many of his principles align with,
Yeah.
more modern research
Yeah.
on motivation and habit formation.
Totally. Like that idea of eating the frog first thing in the morning.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's not just about getting it out of the way.
Right.
It's like setting the tone for the whole day.
It's a mental victory.
Exactly.
It really propels you forward.
And those small wins,
Uh-huh.
they build up over time.
They do.
You know, like you're training your brain
Yeah,
to be less prone to procrastination.
exactly. You're building that muscle.
That brings to mind creative procrastination.
Oh, yes.
I love that idea.
It's so liberating.
Yeah, that we have to procrastinate on something.
Right.
So we might as well be strategic about it.
Absolutely. And it's about letting go of that need to do everything
Right.
and focusing on what really matters.
And that question he suggests,
Yeah.
if I wasn't doing this already, would I start doing it again today?
Such a powerful
It
question.
really makes you think
Because,
about how you're spending your time.
exactly. And identifying those low-value tasks that you can either put off
Or get rid of.
or eliminate completely.
Yeah, so we're decluttering our to-do list
Yes.
and our minds
Exactly.
to make space for the good stuff.
To make space for what matters.
So I think one thing that's really resonated with me is that even small shifts
Yeah.
can lead to big changes
Absolutely.
in our productivity.
You don't have to overhaul your entire life,
Right.
overnight.
Yeah.
It's about implementing these simple but effective strategies.
Consistent.
Consistently. That's the key.
It's like building those frog-eating muscles.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, so if you had to distill eat that frog
Hmm.
down to one core message,
All right.
what would it be?
I think it would be this. Clarity of purpose combined with consistent focused action is the key to unlocking your full potential.
Ooh, I like that.
Identify what matters most, create a plan, and take action one frog at a time.
Beautifully said. And I think the beauty of Eat That Frog
Yeah.
is that it's not just about productivity.
Right.
It's about a more fulfilling life.
Absolutely.
By learning to prioritize and conquer our frogs, we're freeing up time and energy for the things that really matter.
The things that bring us joy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we'll leave you with this question.
Okay.
What is the one frog you've been putting off that could have the biggest positive impact on your life?
Go eat that frog.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Eat That Frog.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found some valuable nuggets to help you conquer procrastination and achieve your goals. Happy frog eating!